So please welcome Naomi Wang, who will be speaking to us on the tailor language for FEDC 426. Naomi Wang is a speech therapist and a founder of Adventure Private Company Limited, and also work at Allied Health Profession Council in Singapore. Naomi received the Bachelor of Speech Pathology with Honor Class 2A from the University of Queensland, Australia. Naomi is a DIR Floortime expert training leader, and she is actively teaching Floortime course to allied health professionals through the ICDL. Please welcome Naomi Wang.
Hello, everybody. Sawadee krap. Hi. Hello from Singapore. Yeah, like what Rachin, sorry, I pronounced it wrongly. Yeah, has said, I have my own speech therapy private practice, which is where I share speech therapy with the parents that I work with. So it has been a fun place to be in. And so today, and so you can find all my contact details in the slide. That's my website, and you're more than welcome to contact me. So today I'm going to speak primarily based on my understanding of how the English language correlates with FEDCs. I understand that most people in the crowd speak Thai because I just scrolled through it, and it's such a big Thai crowd, but also I understand that there is also Dui from Indonesia. There is also Vietnamese among us, and there is also Mandarin speaker like myself. I just want to invite all of us to think about language more holistically and how we're going to tailor it. It doesn't have to be specific to English. So the concepts that I'm going to talk about, although it is packed with English as level and as a developmentally developing level, I want us to think about what is that correlation in our own mother tongue, in our own language, okay? So when you have the idea, share it. So I was just opening up the chat box really more. I would love to see what you guys think in your different languages, because I'm going to touch on some things, and I know I speak a little bit of Vietnamese, and I want to know, and of course Indonesian is something that is close to our place as well. So just chat and chime in your thoughts as well. So here we go. Today, we're going to touch on a couple of things. So the objective today is the big picture understanding of how language develops in children, or typically developing children from 0 to 8. So just a walkthrough to see how it develops, because language is not that elusive unicorn that suddenly develops for some kid and suddenly doesn't for some. So what is it about? Then we want to zoom in really, really tiny details to have a look at what really drives language development. Okay, so I'm going to let you on that secret on it, okay? And then we're going to go into the meat of today's presentation. So how are we going to tailor for each of these FEDC? So language happens a lot within the higher FEDCs, which is 4 to 6. So we're going to break it down into specific FEDC. Which one for each FEDC, we're going to explore what language development looks like in that, and how we're going to tailor our interaction based on their FEDCs. And of course, lastly, I'm going to tell you a secret, okay? A tip, a big secret, so that you're not confused like most speech therapists are out there. Don't tell them. And then lastly, we're going to have a Q&A session, okay? So here we go. How language develops. So if you are going to look at the top corner, you will see 3 gray boxes. So language develops primarily through listening. So if your listening develops really well, you're going to get good language, and then you are going to move on very quickly to emergent literacy. So you can read and write and do all those school-based academic stuff, which we Asians love so much of when your language is developed and when your hearing is developed well. So let's start with hearing, okay, since this is at the very basic, okay, and this is where a lot of people just ignore it. So when a baby, rather a fetus, is developing in the mommy's womb at about halfway through pregnancy, so at about 24 weeks old, the baby 24 weeks gestation, the baby starts to be able to hear. And when the baby is in utero, which is inside, baby is starting to, have some very basic experience with what the native language is like. So the baby, by the time the baby is born, the baby would be able to tell mommy's voice apart from somebody else's voice and have that affinity to mommy's voice, which is very, very keen. So at birth, just at the point of birth, a kid with a profound hearing loss, meaning that the kid has not heard for that 20 weeks or 24, leading up 16 to 20 weeks within gestation, the baby is already losing out. All right. So as the kid grows, at about 6 to 8 months, the baby starts to be able to tune into like specific sounds that is specific to the language that the baby is hearing all day long. So if the baby is a Chinese speaking one, the baby would be able to tell like "u" is different from "u," or a Hindi speaking baby would be able to tell two Ds. And by about 10 to 12 months, this ability is just really, really honed in. And so like an English speaking baby would not be able to tell that two Ds apart, unlike the Hindi speaking baby. And then we move on to language development. This is where all of us love. All of us look at this, and the baby, the toddler talks more and more and more. A toddler or preschooler, so about 2 to 5 years old, talk a lot. So we always refer to this Bloom and Leahy model. This is where we think about the child who is able to talk more and more, not just communicatively. So he's making sense, he's making his sentences longer. So grammar-wise, it is working out well. There is a lot more words that the kid is learning. So vocab and semantics is doing good as well. And also the kids is using the words appropriately. So you want all these three circles to overlap very nicely and the kid functions within here. All right, this in the ideal case. And with ideal case, the child will be able to learn rhymes and be able to play with words a lot more. So they would go like at, cat. Cat sounds like hat, sounds like pet, sounds like mat, it sounds like fat. So with all this word play and with that nice language, we will move on to the next stage. And in this next stage, it is emergent literacy. I know this is really, really tiny here, but basically what I really want to point your eyes to is literacy is like this long thread, but the two strands that really wove that thread is language comprehension as well as word recognition. So a child who has this one and has good recognition skill and has good comprehension, which is from here, going to this part, these two strands woven together will lead to very successful reading skills. All right, so I hope this gives you a big overview of why language develops better than other children. So if something is not working out well, have a look. Okay, maybe this earlier part is not working well. Okay, or if a kid is not learning how to read and write well, so have a look. Is it the language development that is having some problems? Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what drives language development. Actually, I want to thank Amanda, because she has done a lot of the work in setting the stage right here. But the big secret is language is caught and it is not taught. So when Amanda talks about the serve and return, and talking about how that builds attention, this is exactly what we are talking about as speech therapists. We want, an engaged child to be participating with an interested conversational partner within a meaningful context. And with that, there is so much that set the stage for this back and forth. And this back and forth is the one that boosts the child's response to language. And through that experience, the child is able to want to communicate, to able to learn to communicate well, grow his language, his vocab, his sentence structures, his grammar, and just be able to use language more efficiently and know when to use it and when not to use it. So in short, you know, the Bloom and Leahy model, where you get that three circles overlapping, you know, having that nice conversation is able to place that kid in a situation where he can be placed in the middle for optimal language growth. And of course, language growth is not about the amount of words you hear, because if that is the case, I would have learned Thai long ago, because I can watch YouTube in Thai and hopefully absorb everything. But no, you know that that is not true, because even if I were to, you know, put myself all day with YouTube in Thai, that if I haven't initiated a conversation and try and think in Thai, none of that language learning would have happened. So it is not about the amount of words you hear. It is about the practice you get. And like what Mimi has said, you know, children use more language during play, and play is such a nice opportunity to bring out that negotiation and to bring up that opportunity for all of the children to have so much more language output within that situation. So play is, of course, the vehicle where we're going to grow a lot more of this language. Okay, moving on really quickly. So we're going to talk about how we're going to tailor within each FEDC. So we're going to start with FEDC 4, 5, and 6. But before I do that, I'm going to let you into a small little secret, okay? So when we use language within the play situation, if you know you forget everything that I say today, because I know I packed a lot of content in, remember this one thing: you only go one step ahead. All right, let me tell you why. So we all know that children learn to listen first and then talk. So in terms of listening, typical children understand more than what they can say. So if they are saying 2 words, they probably understand 3. So we want to go in and give them that 3 and talk in really short phrases, so that we are not overwhelming them, because language processing takes resources as well. You don't want to dysregulate the child within the play. You want the play to be longer and longer, stretching that rubber band, correct? So we are not going to stress them too much. Just one more, so that we don't under challenge them, all right? And we don't want to over challenge them. So what do I mean one more? How do we actually do it? So if a kid says, is at an onomatopoeia stage, like moo, right? Then you go like moo, cow. Or if a kid is at a single level stage and he goes like car, I'm looking for my car, and oh, it's here. You go like, oh, car, and you want to go like, yeah, car, go, vroom, right? So if a child is at a 2-word combination, you go like car, go, you want to go like car, go, up. You know, if it's a very short sentence that the kid is saying is that I want to go, you ask, oh, where? Go where? Oh, you want to go to the park. If the kid says short sentences, you want to say something a little bit longer. So you want to say, you want to wash your hands. I want to wash my hands, the kid says. Then you say, you want to wash your hands at the sink or in the toilet, okay, at the sink. Okay, so if the kid is saying many short sentences, you want to help them connect it up. Okay, so if this kid says, it is raining, I open umbrella, it was fun. You might say, because it is raining, I opened the umbrella and had so much fun. All right. And of course, I know this is like way above your heads for the moment. We're going to break it down into the different FEDCs, and we're going to take it one step at a time. Okay. So don't panic. Okay. So moving on. So we're going to recap FEDC 4. We are going to think about what language typically develops during that stage within FEDC 4, and then we are going to tailor our interaction within FEDC4. So this is how the structure is going to be like for each of these FEDCs. So to recap FEDC4, when we think about FEDC4, a picture like that usually happens in our head, and we think about, joint social problem solving. And if that's you, ding ding, you're right. Okay, so FEDC4, let me explain it a little bit better here. It's not just about having better praxis. Okay, we want them to actually bring another person into the interaction, because it is actually harder for them to command and to boss the other person around to get the thing that they want. So we want them to be able to solve the problem on their own, as well as be able to solve the problem with somebody else, as therefore it is called shared social problem solving. So we want them to be CEOs, we want them to be little bosses, we want them to be assertive, we want them to be expansive in their communication. So if they see that I'm trying to tell Naomi something and Naomi is like, Naomi is confused. Okay, so the kid needs to be able to read me and go like, oh, how can I show emotional reciprocity, in my interaction? So I know Naomi is confused. So I'm going to try harder to tell Naomi what's going on and be more bossy and be more assertive, so that Naomi is not playing a fool. All right. So with that emotional reciprocity piece, we want the child to be able to explore all of life's basic emotions. Okay. And like what Amanda says, the attention at this stage is getting better. So they are able to think in 2 to 4 sequential steps. So they are recognizing meaningful patterns. So they will be looking around every day, observing daily living. So maybe they have a look and see how daddy goes in and out of the car every day to get his vehicle to go to work. So maybe he might try, and play these little scenes out with the toys that he have, of course, not in 2D version. But we need to be very careful that this is not imaginative play. They are thinking in pictures, which is great, but they are not quite thinking in symbols quite yet. They are starting to perceive these things in patterns. So remember in Amanda's earlier talk, she talks about the different stages of play, and this is representational play in her previous presentation. So they are playing functionally with the toys. So not yet quite imaginative, but parents would want to play imaginatively with the kid at this stage and try and do more and more at this stage, which is great. But we just need to be very careful that this is copied, this is rote learned, and all children go through this stage, and I call it imitative play. All right, so not quite imaginative yet, it's imitative. And they develop a more cohesive sense of self through all these imitative play, because they are now being able to stay longer on a task. They respond to everything. They are being able to boss, as in they respond reciprocally, emotionally to you. They can think in longer steps, and they can boss people around. How good is that? So that is very good for their sense of self. And that is actually developing in this stage as well. So let's have a look at how language looks like in this stage. So receptively, so in terms of understanding from what they hear, they are understanding more words. They are following one-step direction, and they are doing questions like, where's daddy? Okay, they are also understanding a bit more body parts. Expressively, they are doing 7 or more words. So the or more is the main thing I want to talk about. So there is a big variability. They are using voice and gestures to get their ideas across, and they are maybe still using some jargon, so words that we don't understand what they are talking about, and they are singing a lot more. So it is the main mode of communication at this point is still mostly gestural. They are getting their ideas across mainly through gestures, maybe a combination of some sounds, vocalization like and they understand where. So like all of us have said, FEDC4 is a very confusing place for all of us, okay? And in terms of language therapists, speech therapists everywhere, is confusing because the children's vocabulary at this stage, like I said, is 7 or more words. There is this huge variability that is going on. Some children may talk a lot, but and really confuses us on where they are at in terms of FEDCs. So I just want you to think where they are at, because you need to think about whether or not they are regulated when they're talking, whether they are engaged, whether their communication intentions are there, whether they persist in their interaction. So FEDC 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we want to think about their gestures. Are their gestures intentional? Map it to the FEDCs, and that would help you think. So I like to think about FEDCs as thinking skills, and language develops out of a need to express this thinking, this idea. So if I have an analogy, and I love analogies, so FEDC is like the cake, and language is like the icing or the cream. Okay, so if you have a big cake, you can have icing, you can have lots of icing. But if you have cakes with a lot of holes, I don't know how, maybe like me when I bake cakes, it doesn't quite look very nice. There's holes in there. And then when you put icing on it, it does not look nice at all. Okay, so the language maps out these thinking skills, not the other way around. All right. So the other thing that I want to point out is that in FEDC4, remember previously I talked about them recognizing patterns, like, patterns of daddy and going in and out of the car, and they can play this out all day. So they are recognizing patterns, and they fool all of us, speech therapists as well, because these kids are learning words, and they are putting them, this is like a sentence. So they are putting them in chunks, so like that and like that. So they are putting them side by side to each other and saying things, instead of like a typically developing kid where they actually are chaining a lot more different words together to form their sentences. So I hope this representation helps you to think about and hopefully help you think about the kids that you see within your clinical setting, and hopefully that can tell the differences between which is what as well, because it can be very tricky even for a speech therapist. So what we're going to do about it? So the language for FEDC4, we have to speak it. The language is affect. So we go back to our old friend affect and be animated. So sometimes it's hard for us to make big gestures without being foolish or without feeling foolish of ourselves. But big gestures are so essential, because if you are intimidated with your communication with the child that you're working on, actually you give the child very little to respond to, because they may have already got some difficulties trying to figure out what's going on. And if you're giving little, they have nothing to work on. But I'm not saying that you should be phony or grandiose, but rather like what Amanda said, the effect has to be authentic. All right. So when you are authentic, you're modeling authentic, natural effect, so that the child actually has this nice role model that they can actually learn from. And so what you might need to do is just to boost your level of animation a little bit, just like what I'm doing now, because I know it's Saturday afternoon and it is sleepy hour for everybody. All right. So don't limit your gestures to your arms and your hands. You want to use your face and your voice and your emotions. So if you see the ball fall to the ground, you want to sigh in empathy, like, oh, it's fallen. And if the ball rolls towards you, you want to go like, ah, yeah, I've got it. Or you want to use your eyes to find a spot to tickle, and you want to use facial expression to encourage him making a face back at you. You want to use your whole body. So you want to jump, wriggle, or run. You want to use your gestures a little bit more. You want to use your voice. So, you know, regardless or not whether your kid understands words, you can use your voice like what Amanda did. And like, ooh, 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 to draw the kid into the interaction. Or if you're imitating a car, you go like, vroom, 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 vroom. All right, so think of sounds as teaser to hook the child into that interaction. And when you are doing that, you can also use songs. Songs are great. They are great to also teach vocabulary. So you might want to sing like twinkle, twinkle, little. Oh, what is it? Pause it there. Okay. And then you are giving the opportunity for that kid to say something and to also respond and to also try and see what they might come up with. Is it a ah? Is it a is it anything closer in terms of the production? If it is closer, we know we are on the right track. All right. So we want to play hide and seek games as well. So for children who are often would into such interaction. So these large motor activities are great because they strengthen the child's visual and spatial relational abilities. So like what many of us have talked about, we love writing, we love copying, character, academic skills, you know. But you know, the children that we see have difficulties with visual spatial on a big large motor activity. They are going to have difficulties recognizing shapes. They're going to have difficulties writing, especially Chinese character strokes. Yeah, they all look very similar, or even like Thai character strokes, because it looks similar to me too. So if you want, you know, Thai character strokes to look really nice, or even alphabet strokes to look distinct from each other, these are fine visual spatial skills that the child will have to learn, and they learn it from big, large motor activities. All right. We want to also start to think about playful obstruction in this place. Playful obstruction needs to be used with great discernment, because we want longer chains out of this playful situation without losing engagement or reciprocity. I think this is the big terms and conditions that we have to always look at. So when we are doing this, we are promoting gestural and verbal reciprocity, as well as emotional reciprocity. These are great foundations that we need to be looking at, because if a child is not conversational at this stage, you know, they cannot be persistent, they cannot continue that conversation with you at this stage, they will have a hard time conversing at a higher FEDC level, which is what we're going to dive into next, but not quite yet. Just hang in there. All right. So like what I'm saying, a gesture is a foundation for communication and speech. So gestures are the expression of the child's desire. So a gesture translate to word at a higher FEDC. And we need to be able to do that really well at this stage. If we don't, the child will not be fluent with words, will not be fluent with communication, and not quite ready to converse continuously in words at a higher FEDC, because at a lower stage, at the complex problem solving non-verbal stage, is not the best. Okay, so we have to work on it. And at this FEDC 4 stage, what is key is for us to teach a range of emotions. I'm not suggesting that we teach words here, don't get me wrong, but I want us to think about the idea of emotions being experienced effective states. All right, so we want them to be able to experience that so that we can teach it. All right. So for example, if other than joy, which is like laugh and smiles and wave, which we all know, can they express desire for closeness, like holding out the hands and wanting to pull somebody in? Can they express assertiveness? I don't want to eat this food. All right, just go away already, this nonsense food. Can they express jealousy, like pushing the doll away because mommy is feeding the doll instead of feeding me? Can they express playfulness? So the universal playfulness sign that all human beings do is this soft eyes and head tilt, sort of like a little gesture to suggest playfulness. Then can we encourage exploratory behavior, like, oh, where's the toy? Let's go and find out. Okay, can we encourage anger? Oops, sorry. Can we encourage anger? So we don't want to purposely make the kid angry, but when the kid does get angry, can we just wait for a moment, act confused, encourage a couple more circles of communication? Why? What's happened? While he or she is feeling frustrated and annoyed. Can we encourage sadness? Can we sit by the kid when the kid is sad? We slowly soothe it away. The emotion that we want is to get the kid to know how it feels like inside. When we have enough of this feeling, when the word comes along, it sticks with that feeling. So this is how we're going to teach emotion at this stage. If you have not felt it before, the words will not mean a thing. The words will be empty. You know it cognitively, but there is no linkage to what it feels like inside. All right. Okay. So now we are at FEDC 5. So in FEDC 5, there is only one word that I want you to remember. It's symbolism. It's a big word. It just means that everything now is coded and it's in words. So you remember in FEDC 4, we have a very practical CEO that is able to think in pictures, think about 2 to 4 steps ahead, somebody who is involved in a plan, in the here and now plan, and very persistent in his communication. At FEDC 5, it is everything that, but coded now, as if coded in a computer language. Okay, it's coded. It is coded in words, actions, emotions, and play. So the gestures are now turned into words. The doing of the actions becomes thinking in actions. I'm thinking about the actions. I'm not going to hit you because I'm angry. I'm just thinking about hitting you because I'm angry. All right. Emotional reciprocity, that we talked about, the back and forth, is now emotional idea. The imitative play that we talked about now is imaginative play, which I will talk about the difference later. All right. So the child is now able to create this rich, multisensory, detailed picture within his play. And the child is sharing the ideas just beyond here and now, beyond getting his needs met. And the child is now moving on in play, playing whatever that he has experienced before, maybe once in a long time. So let's say going on a plane, going to Thailand, the child can imagine that. The child can imagine going to the supermarket. Child can imagine going to the doctors. Okay, so something that they have experienced before, but not maybe on an everyday basis. All right, so how does language look like in this stage? So language wise, they are starting to remember a little bit more things, to things that they can hold in their head. They're starting to understand a lot more complex language, more actions. They understand functions. They understand what you're doing. And in terms of size, like big and little, they understand quantity, like one and all. But if you look at it, it's basically very black and white, okay? Big and little, there is no medium. All right. They understand where things are, like in, on, and under as well. So, and they start to understand pronouns. Okay, I know in Vietnamese, there is a lot more pronouns. The pronoun extend beyond your usual words. It talks about whether or not you are older compared to the person that you're speaking to. So if I'm a younger person, I would say am, right? So expressively, what it looks like at FEDC 5 is that they are putting novel word combinations together. Okay, so I have to stress the word novel. They are making like big combinations that they are coming with. It's new combinations all the time, and it sounds meaningful. All right. And they are able to talk about pronouns. They refer to themselves as me, and they are asking questions like what's that, what's doing, and who. All right. So there are a couple of phrases of intentionality within this stage. So children may start to babble a little bit more, or label, so a combination of what they are trying to get across. But over time, you will see more intentional use of words that they might say, "Choose now." So although it's two words, the two words are punchy. They have their own intended meaning, and they are put together to really express what their intentions are. So this is what I mean by novel combinations, okay? So they are really direct to the point, hits you in the heart kind of words. All right, over time, they can have words that are intentional, and they will collaborate a lot more, and they will have a nice conversation with you, okay? So the language in FEDC 5, what are we going to do with them? Okay, so in FEDC 5, the key is still to follow the child's lead. Okay, this is still key because it is important that we want to connect all their learning and wishes and intentions, okay, to their idea. Okay, so it has to be their idea, and then the words will link to it. So say, for example, a child wants a doll. "Want dolly, want dolly." And every time the child reaches up his hand, you would say, "You want dolly? You want dolly?" Okay, so this bit of it, I'm not suggesting that you withhold the dolly, okay? So the dolly is coming towards the kid, but maybe you go a bit slower, all right? And at the same time, you buy a little bit more time and go like, "Oh, you want dolly? You want dolly?" All right? So that bit of learning will have deep-seated emotional meaning over time, okay? As the kid reaches out, and the kid will go like, this time around, I know that I can request for it. All right. So at the same time, I want you, I want you to stay in your character, in your drama. Okay, this is the most effective method of pulling your kid into the play. So I don't want you to come in and be on the sidelines. Okay, I want you to take on that role. So if you are an evil person within the play, like I have Darth Sidious here. Ta-da! Like, "I want to ride on your vehicle. You need to go away." Okay, so just imagine how much pronouns that we are getting out of this. Okay, so let's say I say, "Darth Sidious, get away. This vehicle is mine." Okay, I'm only getting that one mine pronoun. But if I say in character, I go like, "I want that vehicle. You need to go away." Okay, this vehicle belongs to me, not yours. Okay, there's so much more pronoun that is used within that small little context as well. All right, so I want you to start verbalizing the thoughts of that character. So for Darth Sidious might say, "Never, you, I'm gone now, bye-bye." All right, so these are the things that you can start thinking about, all right, within that play context. So stay in character, because that helps the child embody the character and start thinking. And that thinking skills shape that symbolism that we are after in FEDC 5. All right. And next, pretend ideas are everywhere. So if you have been to a zoo recently, you want to relive the experience at home, and you don't have to you can relive that experience at home. So for example, you want to play a guessing game, because at this stage, the child's ability to process longer language is there. So you might want to play with that skill as well. So you might go like, oh, I see something. I see an animal with 4 legs and it goes moo. Yeah. And the kid can say, oh, it's a cow. All right. So you don't have to feel worried about enlisting your child's coping behavior in this stage as well. So let's say if you have a kid that likes to flap his hands, then you can use it as a meaningful tool as well. Like, oh, are you a bird? I am a plane. So something like that. All right. And if the kid is using pronouns incorrectly, so maybe he is substituted for a she, then you go like, wait, hang on a minute. I'm confused. Do you mean the boy or the girl? Is it a he or a she? Okay. Or sometimes they go like you and I, and they got it all mixed up and go like, I'm confused, which is who, what? So playfully persist until he corrects himself, because this is the time where we want all these to grow, the pronouns, the symbolism, all these to grow at this lovely stage. All right, so in FEDC 5, we move through acting out the feelings to expressing them in words. And through FEDC 5, when the symbolism grows, they transit from acting out the feelings to putting them in words. So they are so angry and so angry and so angry, they want to hit you, but they will just say, you make me so angry. No, maybe they will say, I want to hit you, but it has never gone from here to here immediately, which is what you will see in FEDC 4. But in FEDC 5, you almost see that stop. They are getting so angry and they hold themselves. All right. And so this is a wonderful place because you have got them there through all this pretend play and labeling of the experiences. So if you're in the drama of that pretend play, you get your kid to verbalize the character's feelings. Oh, how is he feeling right now? Like, how is this bear feeling right now? A bit embarrassed. Yeah. So you want to thicken the plot as the drama keeps going along. You want to introduce new elements. So because we might be afraid that it is a repetitive play. So over time, you want to expand the play a little bit, expand the thinking skills a little bit. So say, for example, if the child really loves fire truck and loves to play with the fireman in a certain way, you might go like, oh, there's an accident. Oh, fireman, help. There's an accident on the road. Or there's a fire. Or maybe today is just a cat that is stuck on the tree. If the kid is into playing restaurant, then you go like, oh no, what to do? The bread has sold out. Oh dear. Okay, so you want to introduce conflict and challenge as well within this stage. So you want to go, if the child has a you can be the character rather. You can be the character that refuse to cooperate and go like, no, I don't want to eat dinner. I want ice cream. Yeah, and so you might be able to pull that off and make that plot a little bit thick. And if the child has difficulties navigating through that, you might want to encourage him like, oh, maybe you can maybe give him 2 options so that he can choose for, so that you can move on with that play. All right, so you might want to offer simple 2-step two choices to help unstuck that situation. Okay, and in FEDC 6, okay, before we go into FEDC 6, let's recap what FEDC 5 looks like. So they are able to symbolize words, emotion, and play. They are a little bit linear in their thinking because they will play out things that they have experienced before. But in FEDC 6, the keyword is imagine. Okay, that's the keyword I want you to remember for this capacity, because they can play in themes that they have never experienced before. So they can play like pirates. Hopefully none of you rob people in sea. So they can play pirates. They play rockets. I don't think there's any rocket scientists among us, but and have you flown into the into outer space? But kids do that because they are now imagining beyond their experiences, because they have spent a long time thinking about, in quotes, like FEDC 5, thinking in symbols, that now they have this flexible thinking that is so good that they can imagine what is beyond them. All right. And a child at this level is thinking and linking ideas, your idea with her idea. The more ideas, the better. So this flexible imagination that brings ideas together will help this child connect a lot more ideas, and this child may have an idea, thinks about your idea, thinks about it, comes back to her idea, links the both up. So this is what I mean by they are not as linear anymore. So they are actually considering your ideas and mixing them together. And with this, they can imagine feelings. So they imagine how you might feel like sitting in your chair on a Saturday afternoon, listening to a long lecture, okay? And they can start taking perspective. So this is the child at this stage. They can think about how you, with your different value and your different view, and they will think about how you might think about that situation. So in terms of what we think of clinically, theory of mind is one of the skills that start developing at this stage. So they will start to sort of lie to tell mommy or daddy to get out of trouble. Because they can play with your knowledge a little bit more. They start to debate and negotiate as they take your perspective so that they can show you their perspective a lot more. All right. And they have been symbolic for a long period of time now. So they develop this nice sense of time. So they can tell you what is past, present, and future. And in terms of words, conjunctions and questions are key because they are seeking connection between your idea, my idea, their ideas. So they are linking their emotional thoughts to logical ideas. So in terms of that, they are building that common sense. All right. So they are coming out with a lot of questions and with a lot of conjunctions to help link what they have in there to the outside world, building that bridge between logical thinking. All right. So at FEDC 6, let's think about their language. Okay. And at this stage, it's a wonderful stage because you get, you're in this stage because you get asked 200 to 300 questions a day. Woohoo! All right, so this is the stage where the kids will go like, why? Why is the sky blue? Why? All right, so in terms of listening, the child is able to now listen to 5 things and really hold it in their head, in their memory for a while. They can sequence 3 pieces of information. They can repeat 6 words. So 6 words can be like, oh, mommy is going to the zoo. Mommy is going to the zoo tomorrow. So they will say it back to you without a problem. All right, they can listen to a 10 to 15-minute story. So auditorily, the attention is a lot better. They are able to understand a lot more things. So they are understanding quantity, like numbers. They are understanding time, so day and night. They are understanding texture, so this is bumpy. They are understanding quality, this is good, this is bad. They are also understanding space. Okay, so this is to the right of that. This is next to that. So how things feel like in terms of location uh, between each other. All right, they are also starting to compare. So a little bit more nuance. Remember in FEDC 5, you get a black and white person, a black and white thinker. In FEDC 6, you get a nuanced person. So somebody like, oh, I'm taller than you, but maybe mommy is the tallest. I wish, but I'm not. Okay, so at then they expressively, they are able to hold longer conversations. One of their key strength is that they are using conjunctions as well. So they are asking when, how, what, and the best question that I like is what if. So what if tells you a lot because they are imagining beyond anything that they have ever experienced. So going back to the FEDC, they are beyond whatever they have imagined or have experienced in their life. Okay, so they are also understanding other people's feelings as well. All right, so what if is so key because you can almost see the progression between the FEDCs. So in FEDC 4, they are here and now. FEDC 5, they are symbolic. They are beyond the here and now, but they are keeping to something that they have personally experienced at one point in their life. And in FEDC 6, it's just beyond beyond the current, whatever that they have experienced. Okay, so a language for FEDC 6. And you can almost see the string that almost looks like a rubber band. Isn't that theme always occurring? So basically, the real goal is for them not to have islands of conversation, but to have this really long ongoing dialogue on an everyday basis. What kind of candy do you want? Where is it? The first one on the top, middle one. So the magic word for this stage is really what else? Okay, so you want to have that long conversation, keeping to the floor time philosophy, you know, of keeping the conversation going as long as possible. So open-ended questions are the best. So let's see, what is it that you want? Okay, so or sometimes you can recall like, oh, this character has done this, and what else would he do next? Okay, occasionally we might be a little bit too abstract. We might say things that may pull on too many functions. So for example, if if the kid is asking, oh mom, where's my Lego? Then you go like, oh, it's in the cabinet, your toy cabinet in the top right corner. You know, that requires visualization, recall, auditory memory, too many things. All right. But if the kid is showing signs of distress, you might want to go in and help. Oh, mom, where is my Luke Skywalker? And you go like, no, I don't know where he is. How about Stormtrooper? Then, you know, when you do that, you will get a rise out of him. You go like, no, no way. How about Darth Vader? You know, just try and see, you know, how you might be able to stretch that. And you want to combine actions and words so that you are able to get that. And at FEDC 6, you want to explore more nuanced feelings. The 6 basic feelings like happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise are great. But at this stage, you want to go with a more varied understanding. So a simple crash, you know, can be strong and powerful, but at the same time, it can be vulnerable and afraid. So you can be cheeky and exhilarating. Notice the difference in intensity, or it can be intimidating or petrifying. All right, so you want to tune into the feeling to find out what the child is feeling and then try and label the feeling that the child is experiencing with that same intensity, all right? So I don't know how that translates to your own language, but think about the intensity, because we are not always only operating in that 6 basic emotion. Okay, so same as before, don't rush into solving or fixing that emotion. Okay, we want them to be accepting of that strong feeling so that the words will stick onto that effective state that they have experienced. All right, and we want to use their natural motivation at that time as well. So we might not want to go with having a conflict. We might want to just use their natural interest. Like if he wants to have cookie, go like, oh, why now? Why not in 5 minutes? Okay. Or you want to go like, oh, why 4 cookies? Why not 6 cookies? You want to have that, back and forth, because you want to tune into their understanding of language, which is so key, because they are understanding time, quantity, texture, quality, space, and they're starting to compare. So you want to tune into all those quantities, creating the opportunity for him to think in terms of all those things, and using conjunctions such as, I like this brand better because, notice that conjunction in there, this one is not as crunchy, maybe. All right, so think about all these things when we are working in FEDC 6. And in FEDC 6, we would like to form bridges between that communication. So like what I've said before, some children with communication difficulties, they do not recognize that they have moved on to the next idea. So because there is no inner voice that warns them, so you want to point out, and then you want to help them bridge that idea. So in doing so, you're going to get a child that probably is going to write essays. Remember that 3-step or the 3 language development and literacy. So they're going to write essays and be able to catch themselves before they go off point. And of course, use conjunctions to help them connect their ideas. And lastly, in terms of language, we want to have a character that has, a little bit more nuanced character. So they are no longer black and white. So for example, if a bad guy went to rob a bank, he then saw a dog that is hurt, and maybe that character is not always bad. He might be able to help, care for that dog. And you can use different voices to help the child get that idea. You can also start playing with a person that has that sort of a two-faced character. And I also like Lego, because now they have like a character with 2 different faces. So like a sad character or a happy character. So a last additional tip, I know I'm running out of time. So we always think about FEDCs and language, and that confuses everybody. All right. And we want to think about FEDCs as thinking skills, and language, appropriate use of language as another skill. Although both of them are developmental in nature, it fools many of us. So I want to propose that, FEDCs shapes our thinking skills, like a little bit of what I talked about, the cake and the icing. So in Mimi's talk, she talks about, Vietnamese parents believing that play supports language, but not cognition. But actually, unless the cognition is supported, the language sometimes becomes quite empty. All right. So this is where I'm end. So let me know if there are any questions, and these are my references. Thank you.
Okay, thank you indeed, Naomi Wong, for the excellent presentation to go in depth of language development in parallel to the development of FEDC 4-6. We have, I think, maybe one sharing from Patamalak.
Yeah.
She talked about she just have a clearer picture of the development of emotional paradox profoundly emerge. I allow Patamalak, maybe you can talk live. Are you okay? You can open the microphone or maybe share the picture.
Thank you, Dr. Racharin. And hi, Ms. Wong.
Hi.
And thank you for your presentation. It's very informative and this your presentation about FCDL. F I know I'm a little bit excited. Sorry. It's just make me have a clearer picture of why the constriction at this sixth developmental level is that they have the black and white, because they have the paradox, have the clearer picture of the paradox of like love and hate, and like what you say, intimidating, and also somehow maybe have another aspect that is really opposite to maybe it just emerges at this age.
Correct.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so it depends on your FEDC. So at 5, they are a lot more black and white, because the language skills and the thinking skills doesn't quite allow for that gray. But at FEDC 6, they are starting to think a lot more on other people's perspective. So they are allowing a bit more gray area in their thinking, and therefore they are comparing as well. So the language has then grown as well, like, oh, I'm taller than you, but somebody else might be the tallest. So yes, you are absolutely right. So at FEDC 5, we tend to see somebody who is quite rigid in that sense. And sometimes if we don't really understand where they are at in terms of developmental milestones or thinking skills or FEDCs, then that's where we will label them like, oh, this one very rigid. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.